SUSA. Our newly added asset to the team, Sir Dave Rambano, Channel Sales Executive, Sir Jomar Ruelas Baños, our Technical Support Engineer, Ms. Linda Laluna, Enterprises Division Manager, Sir Joseph Reyes, Vice President for Enterprise Division, Sir Segwan Lim, SUSA's Pre-Sales Engineer, and lastly, Ms. Maria Lowe, Partner Manager for Southeast Asia. Please open your cameras, team.
Good afternoon, partners.
Partners. Rancher Labs is now part of SUSA, and it is my pleasure to welcome you here this afternoon. Here is our discussion flow for today. First, I will present our company profile. Then the main discussion titled Innovate Everywhere Kubernetes is Reshaping Enterprises, to be discussed by Sir Segwan Lim, then a Q&A session, and lastly, our promo announcement. Please stay tuned as well for the interactive activities. We hope you will learn how Kubernetes and Rancher can help you transform our organization. I would also like to introduce our company, Wordtext Systems Inc., or WSI, has been in the business for 38 years as a pioneer and one of the leading IT distributors in the Philippines. We offer a complete IT solution for your business across industries. We have solutions for infrastructure, design, printing and imaging, security and backup, and communications. We are carrying more than 40 named brands. If you have any requirements in the future, our main office is in Manila and we have branches in Cebu and Davao. You can contact them at from 8 to 5 p.m. Monday to Friday, or you may send us an email at sales@wsifil.com.ph. You can also visit our official social media accounts. We encourage everyone to feel free to like, share, and follow our social media pages and be updated in the latest IT products and information. Lastly, we would like to introduce our e-commerce site, www.WeSellIt.ph, the first pure IT e-commerce site in the Philippines for small and mid-sized businesses. WeSellIt offers a wide range of hardware and software brands. If you want to know more, you may reach us after this webinar. To visit the site, you may go to www.wesellit.ph. Before we dive into the session, here are some important things to know. This webinar is being recorded. If you have questions, you may send it in the chat panel on your screen and we will get back to you during our question and answer portion. Get a chance to win Gcash points during the quiz. To all the winners, make sure you already filled up the evaluation form so we can contact you. Before we start the presentation, I would like to call on Ms. Linda Laluna for the opening remarks.
Thank you, Elaine, and good afternoon, partners. I hope everyone is doing well. We are currently 21 in the room, but we are still expecting others to log in. For those who are here, we would like to thank you and congratulate you for attending our event. By the way, just a short trivia for those who doesn't know WSI. It has been a distributor of SUSA for 17 years now, and we've seen how the company has grown and how it has continuously innovated affordable but versatile open source solutions to its customers. And so today, we are thrilled to share with you yet another opportunity that you can benefit from with the acquisition of Rancher. Let us now listen to our pre-sales engineer from SUSA, Mr. C. Guan, as he will discuss the details of this exciting product. I would like to encourage everyone to stay until the end of the session so you can share this solution to your customers, which in turn may help them accelerate their digital transformation initiatives. Thank you, everyone, and have an enjoyable afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, Elaine and Lynn and WSI for organizing this event. Thank you everyone for having me. My name is Segwan. I'm from Singapore. I'm the pre-sales engineer of SUSA, covering the whole of ASEAN, including Philippines. So without further ado, let me share my slides. The topic of the day is Innovate Everywhere, how Kubernetes is reshaping enterprises. So the agenda for today is, first I'll talk about the overview of SUSA. I'll talk about SUSA vision, history, and how SUSA solutions and products map to the current IT landscape. Next, I'll talk about cloud native trends, discuss about some of the key underlying drivers for cloud native initiative. Next, I'll talk about the Rancher overview, and I'll talk more about how SUSE Rancher application can modernize and accelerate IT infrastructure. And finally, I'll have a short summary. Okay, first, let me start with SUSE overview. So this is a history of SUSE. So SUSE has been around for quite a long while, since 1992. We are the first company to come up with the enterprise version of Linux, and that was in 1992. And since then, we have achieved quite a number of milestones. For example, in 2008, we have joint innovation with SAP, and in 2019, we have a partnership with EQT. So at that point of time, we are part of Micro Focus, and a private equity firm called EQT bought us out of Micro Focus, and now we are the biggest independent open source company in the world. So in 2020, we acquired Rancher Labs, and this will further enhance our container strategy going forward. So these are just some of the highlights that we have as a company. So we have 28 years of successful and satisfied customer. As you can see from there, these are some impressive numbers that we have achieved. So 80% of Linux in large enterprises uses SUSE. So this includes Fortune Global 50 companies. 80% of Linux for SAP are running on SUSE and so forth. So you can see SUSE is very prevalent in the world, and we are really one of the leading company in the world. So some snapshot on Rancher. So Rancher is the most widely adopted enterprise Kubernetes management platform in the world. So you can see from the numbers again, there's 100 million of downloads, 35,000 of active deployments, and 400 plus enterprise customer. So Rancher has achieved broad industry adoption. So as you can see from here, there are many big names here as well. So we are partners with AWS, Microsoft, and all the big hyperscalers and IHV. So Forrester has named Rancher as one of the new wave leader. So when it comes to enterprise container platform, as well as multi-cloud container development platform, we are at the leading quadrant, as you can see from here. So when it comes to containers and Kubernetes, we are definitely one of the leading companies in the world. So next, I want to touch a bit on SUSE vision. So SUSE has three main vision for all enterprise customer. It is to simplify, modernize, and accelerate. So what I mean about simplify is simplify customers' hybrid cloud. So I think a lot of customers, they are currently running critical workloads on all their environment, be it on the data center, in the cloud, or at the edge. So with SUSE, we aspire to help customers to simplify their business, run their business in a easier and more reliable manner. So for example, for SUSE, we have our SAP application offering, we have our high availability extension and live patching extension. So together with SUSE Manager to manage them, we can help customers simplify their business considerably. So next, modernize. So we are also helping customers transform their businesses. So going forward, I think a lot of customers, they are thinking of switching from traditional infrastructure to software-defined infrastructure, making use of containers and Kubernetes and stuff. So with Rancher acquisition, we are sure that we are able to help customers perform the transformation and modernizing of their business in an easier manner as well. So finally, accelerate. So we want to help customers scale their business by making use of all the digital transformation tools that's out there in the market right now. So we provide the necessary platform. Customer, they can rest assured all their applications and the tools, they can run seamlessly on top of our platform. So this is the modern IT landscaping that SUSE has identified. So there are 4 key pie, as you can see at the outage of the circle. There's a software-defined infrastructure, container and cloud platform, artificial intelligence, and edge computing. So going towards the center of the circle, you can see the components and makeup of each of these critical component that SUSE has identified. So for example, for software-defined storage, the key components are network, storage, and compute. So as you go even nearer to the center of the circle, you can see these are the key things that customers are looking at: security, openness, so that vendors don't lock in the customer. The customer can choose whatever they want to. Certified. This is also a key factor that many customers are looking at. The platform that is being deployed in their environment must be certified, and enterprise support. So going into yet further into the center of the circle, you can see these are generally where everything will be deployed. Nowadays, customer, they deploy on-prem, at the edge, private cloud or public cloud. At the heart of everything, you can see customer would require Linux distribution, containers, and VMs to ensure that everything can be achieved. So this is the heart of the whole IT, modern IT landscaping that SUSE identified. And at the heart of everything, we have SUSE, who is able to provide everything for the customer. So SUSE products, we are mapping SUSE products to the IT landscaping that we have identified. So as you can see from over here, when it comes to software-defined infrastructure, we have our multi-modal operating system called SLAS. So SLAS is not just a product, consists of many different variants and flavors. So we also have storage, which is the virtual Longhorn. I'll talk more about that later. We have the compute. We support virtual machines and containers, and we have our containers distribution. We also have our KVM technology, which enables VMs to be run on top of Linux. So we also have our software-defined networking. So when it comes to container and cloud platform, we have something called GitOps. I'll talk more about that later as well. And we also have our flagship Rancher. So for edge computing, we have SUSE Embedded, which is a kind of OS that's customized for edge devices. We have also identified AI as one of the key drivers for digital transformation. So we are developing our AI stack as well. And we also have a variant of SLAS, which is meant for high performance computing. So at the right of this slide, you can see some of the key things that we also have. The SUSE Manager, which is used to maintain the infrastructure of all the items that's listed inside here. And we also have SUSE in the public cloud, whereby SUSE can be deployed in the public cloud, in hyperscalers. We have our templates to ensure that all the OS can be deployed without any issue. So nowadays, we like to talk more about solution rather than product. So this is just mapping our solution to the products that I have presented in the previous slide. So as you can see from here, we can help customer achieve non-stop IT, run SAP solution, and so forth. So first and foremost, we are an open source company. What do I mean by that? So I think a lot of people might wonder, since we are open source, all the products that we have, they should be able to download from the open source community and use it for free. But yes, you can do that. But what SUSE does is taking all this distribution from the community. We do a lot of testing on it. We certify it. We harden it. We curate it. We take out those packages the customer are the most interested in and develop them more, and ensure that these packages are able to run on your hardware without any issue. And then we provide enterprise support, and we provide updates and upgrade every time when there's new feature or when there's a vulnerability out there and you might need to patch your hardware on. So this is the difference between SUSE, our enterprise support, as compared to the upstream project that we support. So these are some of the upstream open source projects that SUSE is involved in. So just want to take something that Ganta has mentioned in 2019. So open source is becoming the backbone for driving digital information. So digital innovation. So this shows how important open source is with regards to the current IT landscaping. So we like to call ourselves open, flexible, and agile. So our solutions are meant for both modular and multimodal mode. So when we say multimodal, it is a kind of infrastructure whereby both traditional infrastructure and software-defined infrastructure come together, and in such an environment, customer might need to manage both of them at the same time. So SUSE solution are designed to be able to fit into such an environment. So we also believe in consolidated management. So with SUSE Manager, you are able to manage all your Linux, not just SUSE Linux, including other Linux such as Red Hat and Ubuntu, from a single pane of glass, and do deployment and patching on them automatically. So Rancher is also another product whereby you can manage multiple Kubernetes cluster from a single pane of glass. So we are true to the open source vision, meaning that we don't like to lock customer down. We we like to give customer the freedom of choice to choose whatever products that they think is the most useful and suitable for their environment. So again, as I mentioned earlier on, we are enterprise ready. We make sure that all the products are able to be run on the hardwares in your environment. So you can rest easy and you can be assured that there's as little problem as possible when you run SUSE on top of your infrastructure. And whenever you encounter any problem, just give a call to our support and we will definitely try our best to help you solve all your issues that you have. So this is just a summary of what I have presented just now, as well as the product portfolio that we have. So at the bottom, you can see that this is the hybrid cloud infrastructure that most of you and most of the customer they will be on. So this is the hardware portion of it. And SUSE, we don't provide any hardware. We don't sell hardware. We sell software. We sell infrastructure software. So this is to just to show to everyone that our solution is meant to run on top of any hardware, be it in development environment, in data center, in the cloud, in the branch at the edge, or at the edge here. So first and foremost, we have the Linux stack, which is supposed to be, in general, the OS that's running on top of all these devices. And then we have something called SUSE Rancher. So this is the main topic of the day, whereby we acquire Rancher to be the centralized management platform for your IT infrastructure. So going forward, okay, before that, a bit of history about SUSE. So we used to have some other offerings like OpenStack, which is a way to manage your infrastructure as well. So at SUSE, we believe that using OpenStack, which is the older way, the traditional infrastructure way using VM to manage, might not be adequate and future-proof. So we move away from OpenStack and we acquire Rancher, and because we think that Rancher is the solution going forward to manage your IT infrastructure. So with this Kubernetes layer and SUSE Rancher layer here, you can just run any of our workloads and application on top of that. So with this, I come to the end of my first part of the presentation. Is there anything that you might want to ask me? So if not, I'm going to discuss a bit about the cloud native trends that's happening in the world right now. So cloud, when we talk about cloud, what does cloud really mean? Cloud is a word that has been overused. Everybody talk about cloud, everybody is using and consuming cloud. So for example, when you use your handphone, when you use your IPTV, you are consuming cloud as well because a lot of the stuff are on demand. So what exactly is cloud? The cloud are just services that can be accessed and delivered over the internet. So this is just the definition to what cloud is. It's as simple as that. So there are many kinds of services that you can consume from the cloud. So it can be categorized into platform as a service, software as a service, infrastructure as a service, etc. So you might heard of the word cloud computing as well. So cloud computing and cloud, to me, it means more or less the same thing. So the key thing about cloud is it is a key thing that's driving the world economy and the interconnected economy right now. So every industry is making use of cloud in some form or another to drive their businesses. So a lot of companies, they're also using cloud, and the fastest digital businesses, they create cloud ecosystem within their business themselves. So for example, they create cloud supply chain, cloud analytics, e-commerce, IoT and stuff, and ensure that their customer is at the center of their innovation. So so this make cloud strategy in companies to be a very important thing, because if you don't do that, you will lose out to company who are trying to innovate using cloud. So what is cloud native? Cloud native is another word that has been used a lot of time, and cloud native basically means an approach to build and run application that exploit the advantages of using a cloud. So basically to have a cloud native kind of approach, there are a few things that you got to look at. First, I'm going to talk about application design. So I'm sure most of you will be familiar with the old way of designing an application, which is the monolithic way. So monolithic is the way of designing for the longest time, and some of the key issues with a monolithic code is you might start small with a small code, But every time when you add more enhancement to it, more feature to it, the code become bigger and bigger. And then it become more and more complex and it's harder to modify, harder to manage. And from a development point of view, it's harder to release new code as well because it is hard to adopt new languages. And even for the developer point of view, the code is getting more and more complicated and complex. And from a patching point of view, such a huge code is very hard to patch. And even worse, from a security point of view, I think a lot of us are concerned about security. If you have a big code to manage, there's more surface of area for vulnerabilities to set in. So all in all, monolithic way is a good way in the past, but going forward, I think things might need to change a little bit. So with that, there's a new way of development called microservices. So microservices is basically splitting up application into smaller interconnected services. So services typically they have their own set of distinct features and functionality. So for example, if you are developing an online store, you might have a service for example, the order management, a service for the payment system, a service for customer management, and a service for the developer and things like this. So designing such an designing application in such a manner is has a lot of advantage. So for example, each services can be tailor-made for its purpose and it can be used it can be developed using whichever language or framework that is the most suitable and efficient. So when apps become in this way, apps become modular. So it's easier for developer to understand, to develop, because the code is the number of codes, the code is smaller, the number of codes are lesser, and it's easier for them to test. So with this in mind, the microservices application design in mind, there's a new development methodology that come out. So CI/CD. So I'm moving from here to here right now. So when it comes to development style, right, because of microservices, there are better ways to develop applications. It used to be the monolithic way, whereby the application would be tested, would be developed and tested all the way from development to production. So each cycle is going to take a long time. So the code development is very, very slow. So that suits the monolithic model, but it doesn't suit the microservices model, whereby it's small and is supposed to be fast and effective. So the new development style, which is CI/CD and DevOps, totally encompass how how microservices can be designed. So CI/CD basically means deployment of small pieces of software continuously all the time. So meaning software can be deployed and released rapidly. So together with CI/CD, there's something called DevOps. So previously, the monolithic way, the developers they are just solely focusing on developing the code, whereas the IT operators they are solely involved in deployment of the hardware infrastructure. And whenever a code has been released, they are supposed to put the code and ensure that the code run properly in the infrastructure. So a problem might arise with when the developer they are developing the code on their development PC, everything runs well. But whenever they put the code and transfer the code to the IT operator and the IT operator put into the actual production environment, something breaks. So this is a key problem that is causing a lot of confusion between the development team and the IT ops team, because both of them might not know what is the actual problem that's causing this thing to happen, since both of them has no visibility in what the other party is doing. So with DevOps, it is basically missing or rather combining IT ops and development team together into one. So by making use of applications and tools to streamline, to link up, and to automate the whole process of development, testing, and releases. So with such a development style, we need to have an infrastructure that's able to support such a development style. So two key things that that everybody needs to bear in mind when it comes to such an IT infrastructure. First, you need to have something called infra as a code, which is using code and automation with regards to anything that has to do with the IT infrastructure. So be deployment or or testing, that kind of things. Everything it would be best if you have some codes to automate the whole process and to ensure the process is consistent. So the other key thing that's driving, the whole cloud native trend is container. So I'm going to talk more about container. So what actually is container? So to demify container is just Linux process which mount a separate disk image by making use of Linux features such as C groups and namespaces. So containers has been around for a long period of time, but recently it really has gained a lot of traction. Some of the key benefits are it is lightweight and efficient, so it is easy to create and deploy and scale. So for a lot of developer, they will be making use of containers and Dockers and just spin off, containers using Docker to run application or to test out certain application or even download application and codes from the upstream and give it a try. So it's very easy to use container and it's not taking up a lot of resources. And it is also consistent and portable, meaning that the same container that is being run on your desktop, if you bring it to another desktop, the user experience and the way it is being run is the same. So it makes things so much better, as what I have talked about just now. When a developer they try to develop the code, and when the IT opt take the code and deploy in their environment, in the production environment, something doesn't work out. With container, this kind of issue is greatly minimized. So again, as I mentioned earlier on, for developer, it's easy for them to run containers because they can just create a package and run it with just Docker. So containers are now a critical IT priority, and there are some figures to show there. So 60% of the developer, they already use container and try out container, and it's a top priority for IT leaders. So when it comes to opportunity, despite the numbers of people trying out containers, only 10% of applications are now currently containerized, which means that a lot of people will be looking into containerizing their application going forward in the near future. And there's a big growth that Forrester is projecting 50% in container adoption by the end of 2021. So this gives rise to a problem. Since container is so small, so efficient, so easy to deploy, what if you have too many containers to manage? So you see, if you have too many containers to manage, you need to manage every single container on its own. So it's difficult because you need to treat the container like a pet. So you need to take care of your pet. So a way to solve this is rather than to take care of the container by treating it like a pet, you can treat it like cattle. So cattle is just cows, and you don't really need to pay special attention to a specific cow. You can treat all of them equally. So with that, we have something called a container management platform called Kubernetes. So Kubernetes is the undisputed market leader in container orchestration and management platform. So basically, Kubernetes is there to take charge of all your containers. So rather than managing the containers one by one, Kubernetes can ensure all the containers can be run without any issue, and you can manage them just simply by using Kubernetes rather than managing each and every container on its own. So Kubernetes is enterprise grade kind of solution. So it comes with all these kind of features that ensure that it works in enterprises. And again, one of the key things is, Kubernetes is able to manage containers in such an extent that you don't even need to worry about where the container is being run, or whether your container is running, or whether anything happened to your container. So it makes use of something called declarative kind of understanding of the situation. So rather than telling the container to run 3 times, if you say something like continue running the containers continue running 3 containers. So every time when one container goes down, Kubernetes will automatically know that that container has gone down and spin up a new container in replacement of it. So everything is very seamless and very straightforward using Kubernetes. So from an organization point of view, adopting Kubernetes bring about a lot of benefit. So I've talked about quite a fair bit of this just now. So this is more or less a summary. One of the key things that I want to highlight is avoid vendor lock-in, because Kubernetes is open source software. Despite the fact that it is being developed by Google, it is contribute back to the open source world. So I have some figures here. So as of October 2018, there are 25,000 contributors across more than 100 companies. So Kubernetes is now the de facto standard when it comes to containers management. Based on what I know, Kubernetes is now they have 70% of the market share as compared to some of the other technology that does the same thing. For example, Docker Swarm and Nomad, which is just they are taking up the rest of the 30%. So Kubernetes also reduce costs because it is it is open source software and it is free for you to use. So it gives a lot of flexibility in enterprises or user in how to deploy Kubernetes in whichever way, whether we want to use the open source version or the enterprise version. So these are some of the user benefit as well, which I have talked quite a fair bit as just now. So integrate with deployment system, recover from failures. Okay, the other thing that I didn't talk about is it is able to scale automatically. So for example, whenever there's an event that is going to happen, such as now probably Korean bands, boy bands that are the most popular in the world, and BTS is going to Philippines to have a concert. So whenever the ticket go on sale, okay, I'm not too sure about the system over in Philippines, but in Singapore, whenever such a thing happen, the whole ticketing system will go down within seconds of the tickets going on sale. So this is because at the back end, they are using the traditional way of deploying the application. So they only allocate so much resources to the the application. So once the amount of the demand is higher than the resources, everything will go down. So with Kubernetes, there's a function to ensure that the scaling can be done automatically. In the event that when there's such an event happening, we can set Kubernetes to be able to auto scale up to a certain extent. So whenever there's more demand coming in, there will be more resources being allocated to meet the demand. So this is very, very important when it comes to, this is a very good feature that Kubernetes comes with. So the next thing is it handles microservices, which I have talked about just now as well. So these are some flavors of Kubernetes. This is the open source one whereby you can download from the upstream and then you can just test it out and run it in your environment as you want. But using this open source version, it has some drawbacks because it doesn't come with enterprise support. And Kubernetes, despite all the usage and all the efficiency of Kubernetes, one key thing about Kubernetes is it is notoriously bad to deploy, hard to deploy. So, yep. Then there are the open source version of it, which is Rancher and DCOS and OKD, which is the open source version of OpenShift. So you can download all this version and run it. And this version of Kubernetes is going to make things easier for the user because there are some script and some backend that has been done to ensure that Kubernetes can be deployed in an easier manner. So this are open source and you are free to use it and run it, but it comes with a caveat. There's no enterprise support. So whenever you run into any issue, you might need to go to the open source community, the forums, and go into the forums and try to ask questions, and hopefully someone is going to answer you. So when it comes to enterprise workload, whereby there's some SLA, the open source version of Kubernetes might not be good enough to meet the requirements. So because of that, we have the commercial version of Kubernetes, and we have versions such as Rancher, OpenShift, Red Hat OpenShift, VMware Tanzu, and stuff. So one key thing about Rancher is the version that's being used in open source and the version that's being used in commercial is the same version. So as compared to some of our competitor, the version that's being distributed in open source and the one that's being distributed in commercial are different. So you can test and ensure everything is running fine with the open source version. But when you want to get enterprise support on it, you would need to do a migration. So this is going to cause a lot of pain to customer and user. But for Rancher, the open source version and the commercial version are exactly the same. So which means that you can test, you can run your workloads on the open source version, And when there's a need for you to get enterprise support, then you just need to give us a call and get the enterprise version, and then you are good to go. You don't need to do any migration. You don't need to do any lift and shift. Everything is seamless. So this is one of the key, one of the key initiative from Rancher, because we believe that we want to give the value to the customer to ensure the customer has a good experience and easy experience in ensuring that they run their workload seamlessly on top of Rancher. So basically, this is summary of what I presented just now. With a modern infrastructure, you need to have a modern way of managing the infrastructure. So this modern way of infrastructure is making use of Kubernetes, and Rancher is one of the Kubernetes management platform. So this with such a infrastructure, right, both the developer and IT ops, they are able to make use of the same infrastructure. So it makes development and deployment so much easier, and so much easier for enterprises to maintain their infrastructure. So it sort of address the needs of both developer and the IT ops. So with this, I come to the end of this portion of my presentation. So is there any questions that you might want for me? So if not, I think there are some games that we might be that WSI has for you.
Before we continue with the second part of the discussion, we will have a quick game of unscrambled words. Joshua to explain the mechanics of the game.
So let me share my screen. So hello, good afternoon. This is Josh, the marketing coordinator of the WSI. So we will be playing a scrambled words. Here are the mechanics for the game, and we will be flashing a bunch of scrambled words on the screen, and you just need to rearrange them and get the correct answer. And also, once you have the answer, type and send it on the chat box. The first person to get the correct answer will win each round. And lastly, we encourage everyone to like and follow our Facebook page at www.facebook.com/wordtextsystems inc/ and to claim your prize. Is everyone ready? Just type in the chat panel if you are ready now. Okay, this is our first scramble word. So the winner is Miss Winnie Maya from Microgenesis Business Systems. The answer is Ratcher. So the next question, the next scramble words is second winner for these scramble words will be Miss Belle Ventura from Questec. Congratulations. And for the next scramble words is so I think we have a winner from this scramble word. So the winner will be Miss Winnie Mayo. Congratulations for answering consistently. So for the next scramble word will be okay. So for the next winner from the scramble words number 4 will be Miss Charis Ann Gahultos for answering Susa. So for the next scramble words will be Sir. So the winner for the scramble words number 5 will be Miss Nika from Questec for answering Bebo. Okay, congratulations. For the for the 6 scramble words will be So the correct answer for the scramble word 6 is open source. Will be Miss Eunice Acosta. Thank you. Congratulations. For the next scramble words, for the scramble words number 7, the answer will be cloud. Again, Miss Nika from Questec, congratulations. And for the last scramble words, for the final scramble words winner uh, will be Miss Charis Ann Gahultos for answering wrong. Congrats. To all the winners, please leave your email address on the chat panel so we can contact you later after this webinar. Elaine?
Thank you, Josh. That was a very fun yet informative game. I hope everyone enjoyed. Congratulations to our winners. Our marketing will contact you on how you will get the prize. We still have another game and a raffle after the second part of the discussion, so stay tuned. Without further ado, let me call again Sir Segwan Lim.
Hi, me again. So let me share my screen one moment. Okay, so everybody can see my screen? I think it should be
Yes.
okay. Okay, so let me proceed on with my presentation. So just have a couple of sessions more to cover. So, okay, So I'm going to talk about Rancher overview now. So firstly, I'm going to talk about the products and projects that Rancher has. So Rancher is the name of the brand itself. Rancher also means the management server, so it can be a little bit confusing at times. So basically, this slide is here to let everybody have a better understanding on what Rancher has to offer. So firstly, you can see that it is being separated into two categories, one as the products and the other as a project. As I mentioned earlier on, we are an open source company, so all our products are based on the community version, whereby people can anywhere out in the world, they are free to contribute to that particular software that is in the community. So with that, we take some of the project and turn them into products. So some of the projects that we have, which is not productized, that means we don't offer subscription, we don't offer enterprise support on them, Rio, Submariner, and Harvester. So let me briefly go through them. So Rio is just a micro platform as a service for building code from source and deploying it into a Kubernetes cluster. So Submariner is meant to connect various Kubernetes cluster so that microservices from one cluster is able to talk to another one in another cluster. So third, we have something called Harvester, which is a hyper-converged infra based on Kubernetes, KubeVirt, and Longhorn. So it brings VM management, virtual machine management into the container platform in an easy manner. So with that, I'm going to move on to all the products that Rancher has to offer. So this is a slide that summarizes the Rancher products. So again, I think you should find this quite familiar because we have quite a few slides that are similar to this. But again, at the bottom, you have all the hardware infrastructure, and be it on the edge, whereby you can make use of K3s to run. So I'm going to talk more about K3s later. In the cloud, whereby you can make use of the hyperscaler Kubernetes distribution. So for Amazon, they have EKS. For Azure, they have AKS and Google GKE, as well as some of the other cloud offering that that's out there in the market. So if when it comes to data center, you can make use of RKE, which is Rancher distribution of Kubernetes. So on top of this underlying layer, which is Kubernetes and the hardware, you can see Rancher Management Console. So this is the central console that's used to manage all the Kubernetes distribution it manages. So we normally refer all this distribution that Rancher manages to be downstream Kubernetes cluster. So Rancher itself is a Kubernetes cluster, and it is used, or rather Rancher server is being hosted on Kubernetes cluster as well. And this Rancher server with lying on top of the Kubernetes cluster is used to manage many of the other Kubernetes cluster in the downstream. So this is the true beauty of Rancher. It is from a single console, single pane of glass. It can be used to manage, monitor, and automate a lot of tasks on many different Kubernetes cluster that it is managing. So we call this multi-cluster management capability. So on top of Rancher, you have different different containerized application that's running on the multiple Kubernetes cluster that Rancher server is managing. So again, this layer is called Rancher Management Platform. We can call it Rancher Server for short. So Rancher, it's not just Rancher itself, because when it comes to the whole ecosystem, including the CI/CD pipeline, there's many other applications that customer might want to run, and in fact, they might already be running. So Rancher, as far as possible, we don't want to reinvent the wheel. We don't want to force customer to adopt to a certain tool or certain application that Rancher endorse. So rather than doing that, Rancher, it comes with a lot of applications that's being built in. So these are the third-party application that's built into Rancher, as well as many other open source application and open source components that is certified to be able to run without any issue with Rancher. So this is the key thing that we are going to bring to customer. We want customer to be able to use whatever that they think is the most useful and the most efficient. So we are pretty much software agnostic. So we support everything, including some of the offerings that our competitor is offering. So just want to show you, high-level architecture of Kubernetes. So Kubernetes basically make use of, we call it two kind of nodes. So we have something called the master nodes, which is the brain behind Kubernetes. So anything with regards to the cluster, for example, the cluster information, how the cluster are being run, how to communicate with the cluster, is all being managed by the Kubernetes master. Whereas all your workload, all your containers are being run on top of the Kubernetes nodes over here. So two kinds of nodes, the master nodes, and normally we call this the worker nodes, though it's not specified here. So the master nodes are used to control the worker nodes, and the containers are running on top of the worker nodes. So as you can see from the high-level architecture, is pretty much the same as as the Kubernetes architecture, just that we have this Rancher server over here and different Kubernetes cluster over here, whereby Rancher is used to manage. So over in this slide, there's just two clusters that this Rancher server is managing, but you can manage many clusters. So as I mentioned, these are called downstream cluster. So just want to give you an overview of how the Rancher server looks like. So basically, it's a web GUI, single pane of glass for you to go into. And from there, you are able to see all the matrices and all the configs and details of each of the Kubernetes cluster that you are managing. So from here, there's a place for you to toggle between the different cluster that you are managing or different namespaces, and you can see all the resources that's being used on the particular namespace or cluster or project and things like this. So you can even zoom into a container level and you can see all the containers, all the containers that's been deployed and all the current status of the containers. So very nice tool, single pane of glass for you to see everything and manage everything. So just want to talk more about the Rancher unique approach when it comes to the Rancher server. So going forward, the trend now is a multi-cluster kind of world. So previously, as I mentioned, containers start to get more and more popular. So there's a proliferation of containers, and hence, in order to manage that many containers, we need to have a management platform, which is Kubernetes, to manage all the different containers that you need to manage. But going forward, Kubernetes has become somewhat like what happened to container in the past. There is more and more Kubernetes cluster happening right now in the world. So in fact, Kubernetes is everywhere. Right? It can be on-prem, it can be in a public cloud. So in order to make use of the whole technology going forward, rather than managing each and individual Kubernetes cluster like a pet, now you need to manage Kubernetes cluster like a cattle. So what Rancher envision is, a central management platform to manage multiple different Kubernetes cluster. So firstly, as I mentioned, Kubernetes distribution are now commoditized. So be it running on-prem with RKE or be it running in the public cloud with AKS, EKS, there's little differences between Kubernetes cluster. So the value right now is in managing of Kubernetes cluster in a multi-cluster kind of context. So these are the key things when it comes to Rancher unique approach. And Rancher, and the last thing that Rancher want to Rancher ambition is the open approach to the open source world, whereby Rancher is certified to run on any hardware infrastructure or any OS, be it Windows or Slash or RHEL or Ubuntu, which are our competitor when it comes to the OS Pi. So yeah, this is the approach, the unique approach, and the value that Rancher brings to customer. So next, I'm going to go into some of the other offerings. Okay, probably let me go back first. So I've already talked about Rancher Management Console and some of the unique approach that Rancher offers. So next, I'm going to talk about some of the components, which probably it's not as popular as Rancher, but these are important components nonetheless. So this is Rancher Kubernetes distribution for the downstream. So again, it is CNCF certified. So CNCF stands for Cloud Native Computing Foundation. So before I go further, Rancher is able to manage any Kubernetes cluster that is CNCF certified. So this is a key thing that Rancher server is able to offer. So when it comes to RKE, these are, for example, you want to deploy Kubernetes on-prem, or you want to deploy Kubernetes in Amazon, but not with EKS, but in EC2. So you can deploy our Rancher Kubernetes distribution. We call it Rancher Kubernetes Engine RKE on top of this hardware infrastructure. So some of the key feature is other than CSCF certified, it is also very simple to deploy. So just a few clicks, a few commands, and you can deploy everything seamlessly. Remember, I mentioned just now, Kubernetes is notoriously difficult to deploy. So RKE makes things so much easier. So RKE also support air-gapped environment, which is very useful, especially I think for a lot of enterprises or for those government projects, you might not want to expose your Kubernetes cluster to the internet. So air-gapped environment is very important, and RKE supports that. So it is, and also automated kind of operation. So it is vendor neutral. So as I mentioned, it is able to be deployed on whichever hardware architecture or whichever cloud if it is on the infrastructure layer. And upgrading is simple, safe, and atomic. And again, we provide enterprise support, similar to what we provide for Rancher. So on top of that, we have something called Longhorn. So just now I talked about containers. So maybe there's one thing that I didn't really emphasize too much is containers are designed to be immutable, meaning that containers is supposed to run the same way wherever it is in a kind of immutable sense. So it's not designed to be changed as and when you want it to be. So so with that kind of architecture, you might think that there's no need to have persistent storage because every time you launch a container, it's supposed to be the same one. So there isn't a need to change anything on top of the container. But then persistent storage are still needed. So for example, between containers, they might need to share a data or they might need to have access to a database, and the database can be deployed as the form of containers as well. So there's still some needs when it comes to persistent storage. So, and when we talk about persistent storage, traditional external storage device, those appliances, flash array, they are not really portable, and they are not really designed for Kubernetes. So one of the key thing is it is very expensive, and the replication kind of solution is not really that optimized for Kubernetes. So whenever there's a replication of the data store, it might take days, and it will really affect the performance of the whole Kubernetes cluster. So Longhorn is a solution to all these problems. It's a distributed kind of storage, which means that data can be replicated and spread across different nodes. So these nodes are the worker nodes, and Longhorn is supposed to be running on every single worker nodes within the Kubernetes cluster. So Longhorn, the architecture of Longhorn, the design of Longhorn will ensure that every single data is being replicated and stored in different worker nodes and different disks within the worker nodes to ensure that whenever one of the data get corrupted, there's other replica there to ensure that your data won't be lost. So it is also NFS and S3 compatible. And it is storage agnostic, so any extension for, so Linux file system, there's one that is commonly used called extension for, can be added to a Longhorn cluster. So again, just a summary of what I have discussed earlier on. So again, the offering of Rancher. First, Rancher server, management console, manage multiple Kubernetes cluster. So the Kubernetes cluster that is being managed by Rancher, what we call downstream cluster, can be in the form of RKE, which I've discussed just now, or it can be in the form of EKS or AKS in the public cloud. And both RKE and AKS, they support Longhorn. So this is a simple overview of what Longhorn can do for workloads if they are running in a hybrid cloud kind of environment within a data center. So next, we have some other offerings to share with you. So we have something called K3S, that is the Rancher Kubernetes distribution for edge devices. So edge devices is something that is quite intriguing. It is not in data centers, so it can be in any places out there, in remote locations, or in the edge of a data center and things like this. So due to the diverse nature of edge devices, and edge devices can be in any form. It can be just a console, or it can be a Raspberry Pi, it can be anything. So it is very difficult due to the location and the diverse nature of all the hardware devices to deploy applications and even OS on top of them. So in this kind of in this uh, with this kind of constraints, right? It is normally easier if you can use Kubernetes and manage them and deploy them remotely, rather than to go to each of these places and try to plug in USB and try to upload the application and things like this. But then there lies another problem, because for each devices, normally the resources are not good enough, and the connection can be and the internet connection can be limited. So these are some of the key challenges whereby each devices faces. And the traditional Kubernetes distribution, for example, RKE, they it is they are more resource hungry, and normally they need multiple nodes in order for the cluster to be running in the production kind of level. So traditional Kubernetes distribution, including RKE, is not meant for each devices. So Rancher come up with something called K3S, which is a Kubernetes distribution that is targeted at the edge devices, because some of the key features that come with K3S are listed over here. It doesn't come with any external dependency, so everything comes in the self-extracting binaries. So if you want to install K3S, it's very straightforward and easy. So one binary contains everything, and it is installed there. So it also comes with low memory and CPU, as well as hard disk requirements. So it's easy for you to install in edge devices whereby resources are limited. And it allows, and together with some of the other technologies that I'm going to talk about later, it allows for limited connectivity. And in addition, it is also able to be set up in HA, high availability kind of configuration, whereby if one of the device go down, the workloads on top of the device would spill over to the other device, to ensure that there's no downtime at all, and there's no single point of failure. Application can continue to run without any issue. So the technology that I talked about just now, is Fleet. So going forward, there's something called GitOps, which is using Git as the single source of truth, or rather, to manage all the applications that's being developed. So using Git, because Git is a versioning control of applications that's being developed. So using Git is the best way to ensure that all the applications are being deployed whenever the developer want it to be deployed. So normally when it comes to application delivery, meaning when you deploy application from Git versioning to Docker, and then Docker deploy the container to the Kubernetes cluster, there's two models to do it, pull and push. So both the model, they come with quite a number of limitation. So at Rancher, we come up with something called Rancher Fleet, which is it can solve the issues of both the push and pull model by having another controller here, and put everything that's needed. I mean, put and configure bundles. Bundles include resources and cluster group, as well as repos from Git to be stored inside the controller itself. So from the controller becomes, rather than using Git, the controller now becomes the repository and the place to push the application to all the different Kubernetes cluster. So the Kubernetes cluster can be configured as cluster group. So for example, if you have different kind of edge devices, and you only want a certain class of edge devices to be updated with a certain application, you can classify all those cluster as a cluster group, and have Fleet manage and push the application to only the cluster group. So again, the other key thing is when it comes to connectivity, with such a model, you don't need to ensure that the Kubernetes cluster are always connected to the internet. So for some of the cluster that have intermittent kind of connection, the application deployment will only take place whenever that cluster has internet access. Okay, so this is again a summary of venture strategy at the edge. So with Fleet and with K3S, you can practically deploy Kubernetes to any cluster, be it in remote, data center, or even on the plane itself, or at shop houses, that kind of things. You're able to do that. So just one more key thing. Fleet comes with Rancher Server. So it's a feature in Rancher Server, which means that you don't need to pay any additional subscription for Fleet. So with this, I come to the end of my presentation on Rancher. So is there anything that you might want to ask me? So if not, just one more slide that I want to cover. This is venture value proposition as well as a summary of what I've covered just now. So firstly, venture is 100% open source. It doesn't hold any feature back and is driving massive adoption. So every features that we think is good from the upstream communities, we will put into venture, and then venture, we open source venture for everybody to use it. So the version of venture that is open source and the venture version that is enterprise are the same version. So feel free to use whichever features that we incorporate into venture. And feel free to test whatever workloads that you want to run on top of venture. So Kubernetes is now the standard of computing. So as I discussed earlier on, Kubernetes is becoming more and more commoditized, and there's no big differentiator between different Kubernetes distribution. The key thing now is treating Kubernetes cluster in the form of kata and managing them. And we also have something called K3S, as I mentioned earlier on as well. So K3S is deploying Kubernetes at the edges. So similarly, you can manage K3S in just like how you manage Kubernetes cluster and manage them all together from Rancher Management Console. So these are some of the innovations that Rancher has to to continue to push the market forward to make sure that technology can continue to progress. So some of the projects that we have like Submariner and some of the things that we have productized like Longhorn and K3S stuff. So it is also developer experience driven. So again, we like to use a single pane of glass to manage everything. So there's no documentation installed into the distribution. So it's more lightweight and easier to use. And we always like to say that we are open source company because we allow the customer to choose whatever applications or components that they think is the most useful. And we don't like to lock down vendors, or rather we don't like to lock down customer. So we don't practice vendor lockdown. So with this, I come to the end of my presentation. So thank you very much for spending roughly more than an hour with me. So with this, I'm going to hand it back to WSI.
That was a very informative presentation. Thank you for that, Sir Segwan. Let us now
Thank
proceed
you.
with the Q&A. If you have any questions or any clarifications, you may now leave it in the question box located at the right panel on your screen, or you may raise your hand and unmute yourself. I think as of now, we don't have any questions yet from our attendees. While waiting for the questions, I have a promo announcement for our beloved partners. We rolled out an incentive titled Harnessing the Power of SUSE. Terms and conditions are as shown. For a PO amount of 350 to 500 pesos, Voucher incentive is 2,000 pesos. For 500 to 1 million, voucher incentive is 4,000 pesos. And for 1 million and up, voucher is 6,000 pesos. Please also take note that this incentive is for new installations only and not for renewals. I will send this incentive again through email and in case anyone here needs clarifications. So here is a question from Sir Paul Reynand A. Magahis. What's the main difference between Rancher and OpenShift of Red Hat?
Okay, so the key difference between Rancher and OpenShift Red Hat is, Rancher, we support all kind of CNCM distribution, whereas for OpenShift they only support their own distribution. So OpenShift is unable to be deployed on Kubernetes, those clusters that are based on upstream Kubernetes. So it is sort of different because when it comes to from the angle, right, OpenShift cannot manage AKS, EKS, or GKE. So it can only manage OpenShift cluster that is lying on top of the infrastructure layer. So for example, EC2, and if you are running AWS, you have EC2, and you deploy OpenShift on top of EC2. So that's where you can use OpenShift to manage them. But if you are running Kubernetes cluster running on top of AKS or EKS rather than EC2, then you are unable to use OpenShift to manage them. So that's a key differentiator. For Rancher, we believe in letting the customer choose whatever Kubernetes distribution that they have in mind and manage them seamlessly. Whereas for OpenShift, they prefer to lock the customer down in the series of in whatever components and applications that they think is most suitable for their own distribution. So that's the key difference between Rancher and OpenShift.
Do we have any more questions? So let us continue with our next activity. You would need to fill up the feedback form to join. The link is provided in the chat box, or you can scan the QR code presented on your screen. Once you submit the form, click the link provided and you will be redirected to the quiz is page. For us to identify the winners quickly, use company underscore complete name, example WSI underscore Elaine Tamandong. I would like to call again Josh for the mechanics of the game.
So hello again, good afternoon everyone. So the question are all related to Seg 1 presentation earlier. So I hope everyone has listened and attentively. So let me share my screen. Hello, Miss Melody. Please reload the site and you may submit the eval form. So while waiting for everyone to join, again, I would like to encourage everyone to answer our feedback form. The link is provided in the chat box. You may use the link provided after fill up in the eval form and also the code. So we have a 3 participant already for the quizzes. So while you're waiting for the others, for the mechanics of this game, a question will be flashed on the screen and you will have to identify the correct answer. So the faster you are on answering the question, the higher the points you can earn. There are some boosters that you can use to help you in getting more points or to distract the other participants. It's 14 now, 13. So we will only honor the participants who have submitted their feedback forms. So if you did not submit the feedback form, we will have to disqualify you from winning. And again, for us to identify the winners quickly, use company underscore complete name. For example, WSI underscore Joshua Rosas. And is everyone already joined the game?
We already have 14 participants in the game. Miss Belventura is in the game. Sir Rani Huwinda. Um, Miss Janet from Questec. Francis Fabian from Axe. Miss Nika from Questec. Miss Net. Kindly follow the format. It's your company underscore your name so we can easily track you. Miss Roselle from Manila Tech, Miss Winnie from Microgenesis, and Miss Ella from Microgenesis. I am encouraging everyone to join the game.
Ma'am, ano po code, ma'am? Naghahanap ng code.
Yung code
Sir,
is
the code is
15278.
12783.
Can we start? Is everyone here? Okay, let's wait. We have 29 attendees, only one left. Okay, everyone is here.
So let's start the game. Is everyone already joined?
I think we can start.
Okay. 4, 2, 1. Ten seconds left. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So Miss Bell leading the game. Ten seconds left. 2, 1. Ten seconds left. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So the question is service models and cloud computing include. Ten seconds left. For the final question, hello, congratulations to Miss Ella from Microgenesis and also from Miss Melanie from Microgenesis also. You won a Gcash points. We will email you regarding how to claim the prize. Elaine?
Congratulations to all the winners. Now, for the last activity for this session, we will be having a raffle. Only 5 participants will be picked out to be the winners for this raffle. Our prizes are as shown in the slide. Josh, please show our raffle prizes. Yan. Minor prizes are 2 HP 15.6 inches preload row backpack, 2 pieces Jabra Talk 15, and for the grand prize is Jabra Elite 75T in titanium black. To start the raffle, please show the wheel of names.
Let me show my screen. Okay, Elaine?
Yes, Josh, can you?
Can you see my screen?
Yes,
Okay, so all of the entry for this raffle will be coming from the feedback form. If your name is still not included, you may see the link at the chat panel The link for the e-ballot to chat file.
Okay, let's start, Joshua.
So for the
Oh,
first winner will be
congratulations, Miss Rosel D. Panganiban. You won a HP 15.6 row backpack. Next. Congratulations, Miss Roma Belventura. Also won HP 15.6 inches prelude row backpack. Congratulations, Miss Janet Ramos, for winning Jabra Talk 15. Congratulations, Sir Mikey Tuplano, for also winning Jabra Talk 15. Congratulations, Miss Melanie Mupada, for winning our grand prize, the Jabra Elite 75T in titanium black. Congratulations, winners! And to all our winners, our marketing or I will contact you on how you will get your prize. Just make sure you already filled up the evaluation form. Again, a reminder that we cannot honor the accounts if it's not under your name. Congratulations, winners! I would like to call back on screen Miss Linda Laluna to officially close our session.
Thank you, Elaine. Partners, I hope you find this session informative and helpful for your business. For those who haven't win, okay lang, we still have sessions for the following months. So if you need a follow-through session naman, so you can know more how to position this product, or if you need help to pitch this to your customers, please let us know. So we're more than willing to have a joint call with you. We'll also be announcing a rebate and incentive program for ranchers, so please watch out for that. Okay, thank you again for making it through the end. Have a great weekend, everyone.